From the country that brought you Rami Malek and Hoda Kotb,
It's a conundrum.
with Sam Taha.
Kif, we have a conundrum.
I'm gonna get comfortable. Oh my god, I can't show my bunions.
Bunions?
Yeah.
Was that your butt?
No.
Oh, well, what's bunions?
What is bunions?
What
Bunions
is
are the
bunions?
big weird bone in your foot that in me goes way out. Your big toe bone. This.
Oh.
Yeah, that's if you have that, it's called a bunion. Otherwise, it's just a regular bone.
And that's where the origin of the name bunions come from? Like when they say bunion, that's where this comes from? What's the name
Yes.
of the tall giant guy?
Oh, Paul Bunyan. That
Yeah.
was actually his name.
Okay, so it wasn't because like
no, and
okay.
it's spelled differently.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that has a Y. Y-O-N, Bunyan, but this is B-U-N-I-O-N, like an onion with a B. Well, that would be Banyan if it was.
Then
Bunyan with a B.
which part of the pain is the Funyuns part?
There's no pain. And most people have
So
pain.
it doesn't hurt.
Most people have pain with their
Oh.
bunions,
So
but I actually
you're just
think
being
that
yes,
I'm just self-conscious. They're
about-
ugly. But most people have pain, and I think the reason I don't have pain is I don't wear high heels because I'm me,
yeah.
and I'm a tall girl anyway. I don't need to. Plus, I think it's offensive that all you have to do is put a little stick under your foot and men get hard-ons.
I don't think men find women from like I think what we like is the long legs.
Yeah, but you have to put a stick under. You have to, like, stand on your tippy toes to lengthen your leg.
Yeah, and it doesn't look comfortable. Like the high heels and the eyebrows are one of those things where like they like doing this. We're just not gonna comment on it. We're just like they like
No.
doing this. No, I've never seen a guy who was like I'm into high heels.
Oh, I have.
Really?
Yeah.
How tall are these men?
Oh, I don't know that it has to do with height. I think it's like, it's deep in some like whore taboo and
Oh,
You
the
know?
red heels is a different stuff.
oh,
Yeah, no, but see, there's very distinct
like
whore.
as long as it's red.
Yeah,
heel.
no, red heels is very hoary, blah blah blah.
I'm just saying heels in general. I think they actually like change the angle of the hip.
Yeah,
They
no.
change the calf. Like they.
Just look at the position at the feet in the.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's like you look like, oh my god, what are you pulling? This is a feat of strength that you're doing right now. Should you be doing this in
I
a
don't think
circus or
most-
something?
Most men think that way. I'm not saying that you're wildly different. I'm glad
I
that you
am
think
wildly
that way.
different. Yeah.
Well, you are wildly different.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you think that way. But I think, and it's not every man by any stretch, but I think there is like a
A
visceral
general
penis
consensus.
response
Yeah, yeah.
to a heel.
I'm not gonna deny it.
And that offends me because it makes me, it's not even a feminist thing. I just lose respect for someone who all it requires is that I stand on my tippy toes and suddenly you think I'm sexy. Like, I think that's pathetic.
Yeah, no, I get it. And on the other hand, like on the other side of this, it feels cheap if you find someone attractive because of their high heels.
Right.
Like then again, my
Like, who am I? That
yeah.
all it takes is my heels.
It's like
That's
really
what
the
I'm
heel, and
saying.
even like, oh, this is all it needed, so you're willing to
Yeah.
put away character flaws on her because she has heels.
Totally.
Like it doesn't.
Or any female, like one of the first bits I ever did about comedy is like the 175 things you have to do to be a woman to feel good about yourself. And I find it so offensive that there's this whole theater that women engage
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that is in direct contrast to and in total denial of their inner being, which is who they really are, like bitch or good person.
Yeah.
But we sit there and we like do this kabuki theater every morning because men, and I shouldn't find it offensive because a lot of it's just pure biology being so driven visually, that governs their first impressions big time. I mean, all of us are
100%.
first impressions are visual.
Yeah, yeah.
But it
We're
can
more
govern
superficial
their
that we're
attraction.
saying.
Whereas a woman like can meet a guy and he can be like kind of schlubby, but give him half an hour to charm her.
But that's really it. You had because I listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson
Mhm.
lately. I
Mhm.
know he's controversial,
Mhm.
but he has a lot of stuff that agrees with our backward, second
Mhm.
world thinking
Mhm.
mentality of
Right.
men.
Of biological reduction.
And
reductionist?
unfortunately, I do
Reductivist?
subscribe a lot to the biological reduction as they've labeled it, because it makes more sense, because there is a lot of stuff that this is a hallucination. Reality is a hallucination that we agree on. there's a lot of the stuff that you are being governed and moved by that are happening subconsciously that you don't even think about.
Sure.
So before we put morality and saying that, well, you should behave this way and society should behave this way, let's go back to why does the dog behave this way when it hears the sound? Like, really, that's more of the training that's been happening for thousands of years. So his thing that he keeps saying a lot is that men are interested in things, women are interested in people. So
Another reason why learning about this stuff is painful. It's enlightening and liberating. Learning about how women are wired has been very inspiring to me at certain times and helped me understand myself a lot. Learning how men are wired has depressed me.
it's
I'm
almost
sorry to say that.
It's almost
I love many men. You know what I mean? But it depresses me that we're so different because it seems like an insurmountable chasm sometimes.
I don't think so. I always see it as it's like you're being upset at like, why is this side of the coin heads and this side of the coin tails?
I know, but your side of the coin is sometimes tips into like empty and not human.
But how much of that is society? How much of that
Well,
is
but
society
you're the one who
based?
said you were a biological reductionist.
So, but biological and I'm adaptational reductionist, I would say. Biological and
I
societal.
think it's practically nothing, actually. I think if anything, society should be driving men into the more like socialized version of things. And the fact that men, because of their biology, I don't blame it on men, continue to sometimes be very simplistic.
Simple,
yes, is just what is. And my problem is that I grew up only with sisters and with a father who was like at a distance and with a single mom who was a feminist. So I was steeped in female communication and steeped in female values and strengths and weaknesses. So it wasn't until I was literally like 35 that I realized how different men were. In fact, I projected onto men up until then that they were just like women. And so it was late in the game for me to really understand not only how different men are, but I had no skills around manipulating or using or respecting.
To 35.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like a rude awakening to realize that these individuals who I wanted to engage with, because I had all the biological pull of anybody else, you know, and it's not like I never related to men. But
you were getting attention from men?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't.
But you still didn't like it.
But I didn't know how. First of all, I didn't feel good about getting attention from men. In other words, I felt like, really, I just have to put this stick on my foot.
Oh
like,
yeah,
that bothered me.
I know. It feels. I know what you mean. It feels like almost cheap.
Well, it's insulting.
Yeah.
It's insulting because I spent my whole life developing like invisible things. You know what I mean? And suddenly none of them matter. And
but they do matter. But it's like what we're saying is
second, though.
yes.
They come
Unfortunately,
second.
no,
That's
they come with time.
Okay, sure, but you have to. The door has to be opened with like superficial, slutty things. Now, it doesn't have to be slutty, but you know what I mean. Like,
I know,
the
yeah.
door has to be opened with like grooming and shit. That just bugged me because I was never good at it. I didn't care, and so then not only was I not good at or not interested in doing the dance to get the attention. Once I had the attention, because I'd grown up in this fully female environment, I really didn't know how to keep the attention. I didn't know how to like own a man. And I don't mean own it.
I know what you
dominate,
mean.
But I
Like
mean,
to keep a man.
Yeah, to handle male energy in my life on a regular basis. I still don't know that I know how to do that. And I think any man that I would have a long-term relationship with has to have a pretty developed feminine side.
I mean, it's there's a lot of factors that goes into why men behave the way they behave. There is a big part of it that is the biological stuff. We want to have sex. Sex is very important, blah, blah, blah. It has to be novel and new and fresh. And that's why a lot of relationships, after a long time, they start becoming stale. And, hey, let's try to spice things up and all of these things. But also what happened with patriarchy, in a way, had effect on men as well. Like patriarchy had the effect of that. That's what I mean by the two sides of the same coin. Is because now your value became how much do you have? your possessions, your power, your influence, that what became attractive. That's how men are getting married and getting into relationships and proving their worth is by the car, the house, the job, the money. So and
Although I
women,
never felt that way
sure,
about men.
I'm not like you,
But I say
and you're
that
not like
because-
other women.
Right, and you're right. And I just
I'm
wanna
like
say,
you, and you're not like other women. Yeah.
I didn't, because my mother was financially independent. I never
never
in my
saw
life
that, yeah.
depended on a man financially. So I never. That was another reason I had a shit relationships with men, is that I wasn't coming from that level of the bandwidth between men and women, which is about dependency and need and security. Never functioned from that place. So all these
Because you've
places
always had
that
it.
are normal hetero relations, I was not prepared for.
And you never, like your dad, as a father figure, there was never not like an Electra complex here of like you're trying to find the man that's gonna replace your dad or gonna.
Oh yeah, but my dad is and was a very nice person, a very good person, but he remarried when I was 5 and started a whole other family, and is not the most emotionally available person. And he would so I feel like what I was set up for in terms of being attracted to men was this longing for someone who wasn't there. Again, like another factor in screwing up any love life. I mean, it's so funny. We're sitting here talking about like why Jessica is never in relationships. And I'm totally at peace with it at this point. Like, I truly believe that this is my path and this is what I'm supposed to do. And it's almost like the universe got men out of the way in so decisively and so well, that like forced me to grow in the ways that I've grown, in the ways that I'm now like not only very strong but stronger than your average person. I with all respect to people who do all the other stuff that I could never do, that I would suck at. I would suck at being a mom. I would suck at doing the stuff that I managed to avoid.
You know the multiverse theory?
Yes.
I feel the multiverse theory is in with every person. Like you see every person as a universe of decisions you could have made, but you didn't, and they did.
Oh my God.
And they're living out that reality in that in that. So, and in a way, we'll take this analogy and put it on the side, and always think of the analogy of growing trees. And if you tie the branch a certain way, the trees change. It's the way it looks.
Right.
You can make the tree.
Yeah.
And just it happened that your branch, the dating branch, was tied a certain way, but that opened up
There was more than that.
a window.
It was the trunk, but yes.
Sure,
Yeah.
but like it didn't develop or it didn't grow like all the other trees, but that made room
For a whole different
different stuff, and that
Absolutely.
became the new reality that you lived in. That you could have became a mother. You could have lived the reality where you were very popular and successful in high school, but that wouldn't have made the Jess that is content now.
I was very popular in high school.
More popular, and
No, very.
maybe she would have understood men
No,
at 15 instead of
very.
35.
I just happened to go to a school that was extremely nerdy, and I'm serious.
Mhm.
I have a whole theory. We'll get back to your theories. And
I have
first
so
of all, I
many
just want to say, like, it wasn't just, it felt on some level like, yes, that branch was like being rerouted, and I was like, fuck you, God. But I realized in retrospect.
wanted it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I realize in retrospect that it wasn't my path at all. Like, I really, really think, given what's happening, say, just in other areas of my life, the ways I've developed, like the things I offer to life, had to be developed without a relationship. Like they were it was required that I was single most of the time to develop this thing. So in retrospect, and being older and not having the hormones like drive me like they used to, I sit there and go like, oh, this was the plan. This was totally the plan. Because the truth is, for a woman, Sam, if I'd really wanted to have a baby, you can do it.
Yeah.
It's not hard. I mean, it's not hard to get pregnant.
Yeah, we talked
unless-
about how easy
with
men.
all respect
yeah.
to people who have infertility issues, that aside.
yeah.
But it's pregnancy happens, and if I'd really wanted it, I would have done it, and I didn't. So did I want it? Yes, but how much? Okay, so I have this theory that like your whole life is governed by how cool you were in high school.
Interesting.
Like where you were in the social hierarchy in high school is something that you carry with you for the rest of your life.
Oh, that's very good. That's very true.
And I'm exceedingly lucky that I went to a super nerdy high school, like super nerdy, like required an entrance exam to get in, like prided itself on being the Latin, like Latin and math contests were like the thing. There were practically no sports. I mean, it was super,
Latin?
Yeah, Latin. So we're talking like what the kids I went to school with, a certain percentage of them these days would be considered on the spectrum. It was deeply, deeply smart in very specific sort of little genius paths. And I, was smart enough to go, and my father had gone, and my grandfather had gone to this school, so I'm sure my being a legacy had something to do with it. So I come in there with just enough social EQ to be the cool kid. I was like
That's very rare for a comedian to be the cool kid.
I know.
Right?
But I was a cool kid in like a sea of nerds.
Yeah,
and there were
yeah.
only
Oh, I see.
70 people in my class. So it wasn't
The
that
land of
hard.
the blind.
Like the numbers were good. And I'm sitting there with a class of 70 people, and there's probably like 10 cool kids, 8 maybe. And I was one of them. And so I get
What
to
made you cool though?
Oh, that
Like,
I
was
could
it the
carry a
sense of humor?
conversation,
Oh.
that I had a sense of humor, that I smoked cigarettes at 14, that I tried pot when I was 12. Like, you know what I mean? That I like loved the Rolling Stones. I just did normal teenage things, but in that environment, that was cool. So I'm so grateful that I care. I think I'm the cool kid in life.
Wow.
But it wasn't forged in a reasonable oven. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I still have the feeling. That's all that matters.
It's so weird because I went to a high school where I was new to it. So I always felt that I'm the outsider.
Right.
So I can't even rank myself saying that, oh, was I from the cool kids? Like I didn't even exist. And it's almost in a way, the way how I feel about myself in life. It's like in Egypt, was he here? He's Egyptian? We don't know. Like he's here but not there. I'm the honorary human. I'm the honorary student.
And then you come to America where you really are technically an outsider.
Still. And
Right.
again, like when I was born in Qatar, and in Qatar, as an Egyptian, you're born there automatically a foreigner. You don't get the birth certificate. You don't get citizenship because
that's
you're
like
born
Germany.
there. Yeah. But again, like I born in '84. Bless you. I was born in '84. The country was founded officially in '71.
Wow.
So the country was like a
Qatar.
teenager. Yeah,
Right.
the country is 13 years old back then, and that's what they were doing. They had a very select group of people, the Qatari people.
Yeah.
These are the actual citizens, and the rest are just labor.
How many are there?
When I left in '97, the population, according to the entire census, was 240,000 people.
Wow.
70% of them foreigners.
Oh, really? And like workers.
Yeah.
Right.
From teaching to
Okay.
like all the way from like university teaching down to construction worker.
Right.
All of them are, most of them Egyptian, the rest of Indian, Bangladesh, and I think now they're up to like maybe 1.25 million, something laughable like this. It's a small country. So when as an Egyptian there, I'm a foreigner. But then I go back to Egypt, and immediately, because I was born there and spent there 14 years, so I'm a foreigner in Egypt as well. Because it's like, where are you from?
Right,
You speak a bit
right.
weird Arabic.
And then you come here.
And then I come here where I'm like the Egyptian outside of Egypt. So it's like I'm
Interesting.
always this in between
Do
limbo.
you think that started in high school? Do you think that like feeling began there?
I would say yeah, because I was uprooted from my from Qatar where all my friends were and everything, and just like now we'll go back to Egypt, the country where it's technically your country, but
Right.
it's not really your home. My
Right.
home was this weird.
So you were born in Qatar.
Yeah.
So what's the thing about people saying Qatar instead of Qatar? Is that just people trying to be cool?
Because the actual name of the country is Qatar.
Oh, okay. So it's
It's a hard K and a hard T.
right.
And try to tell that to foreigners. They
Right.
just like Qatar, so it became Qatar. Yeah, Qatar.
I can
Yeah,
say it.
yeah. I think now they're starting to promote Dubai more, not Dubai, Doha, Doha is the capital,
Right.
and it's like easier to say. So
Right,
Doha,
right,
so
right.
Doha, go to Doha. They're gonna have the World Cup over there. There was a lot of slavery, and brown people died over there. You know about this?
No.
Oh, that's really the country. That's why the entire country is known. It's just because of how much they treat immigrants over there like slaves, 100%.
Really?
Because we have all the money, and you guys are just coming here to work for us, and you
Yes.
don't want to come. Well, there's thousands who
But I
want to
mean, they
come here.
get paid, so it's
They
not
get paid.
properly slavery. Slavery, by definition, is that you are not paid.
Okay, so hear this. They have the workers come into the country, then they take away their passports.
Oh, okay, that's not good. That's
So,
not good.
Yeah, you can't go back to see
Hey,
your
Qatar.
family.
Not good.
Not good. And the temperatures up there up to 120, 130 degrees.
Turn down the thermostat.
Turn
Qatar.
down the thermostat
And people are working outside.
outside and dying of heat. And
Really?
yeah.
And what does anyone give a shit when someone dies of heat?
They tried, but money wins. Because the way they got the World Cup itself was through bribery. They bribed FIFA.
Oh wow.
And that came
FIFA
out.
looks very bribable.
Oh yeah, that was John Oliver's. His first thing he did, and
Was
last
about
week tonight
FIFA?
was about FIFA. The first thing that became very successful. And he talked about Qatar and how they. Anyways, how did we get here?
We
Is
got
the
here, Rich,
it
we're
should be
talking
the name
about
of the
high
podcast.
school and
How
being
did we
the
get here?
outsider, and then you said, you grew up in Qatar.
Oh yeah, that's a very good
I'm doing
theory.
it more and more.
This,
Qatar.
I like it. Keep
Thank you.
going. We're gonna change. I
You're
like
gonna
how
get canceled for that. You
nobody
know.
cares from Qatar. No one is
Okay.
gonna be like, we have to get the Canadian in
Unlike
America.
Qataris Twitter, Qatari.
Again,
Twitter.
let me remind you, I'm invisible.
Okay. Oh yeah.
We're here but
Good.
not here.
That's so good.
But that's such a good premise. You should use this for stand up, I think.
It's true. And in fact, when I was in England for the last month, I did think up some premises. I need to work them out. I'm psyched to go to an open mic. I feel like this muscle in me hasn't moved in 6 weeks, and it feels really good to.
It doesn't atrophy. I always think of it as it's nice to let it breathe sometimes.
Yeah, I
It's
don't think it
almost-
atrophies either. You're right.
Yeah. You
But-
come back, you find it.
But it is, once you've done comedy, you realize just how repressed most of us are, just making it through the day, trying to be good people with other good people.
It's if I'm not doing comedy, a lot of times I would have thoughts, and I'm like I would think it as a human. This is just dies with me.
Right.
Like I don't write this down. I don't say this somewhere. Like what? Just this weird idea just comes. Do I tweet this? Like it's weird to me that we didn't have.
Oh,
Like
I
there
thought you
are
meant like it was such a dirty or criminal thought that it dies with me. You know what I mean? Some of those.
the bad ones and always like the wacky ones.
Right.
I don't have something on top of my head right now. This is dumb, but like I notice how I eat a lot of cup of noodles right now because I'm broke. And I've started noticing how the cup of noodle comes with exactly 1 pea and 1 piece of corn.
Oh my God.
And I started thinking, like, did they do like a feasibility study and said, like, if we
Right.
put 2 corns, we go out of business? It's not. It's
No, I think what they did is they realized they did focus groups and realized that if all you need to do is put 1 pea and 1 corn, and they will buy it as like we have vegetables.
we have
Like, this
vegetables.
is-
It
yes,
counts. We've
yes,
passed
this
the
is
quota.
a meal. This is a meal.
I like stuff like this. I'm very like I want to start like an entire investigation into why do you guys put 1 corn, 1 pea.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm gonna try to make it into stand up, but this is what I mean by the thought. Like this thought,
Right.
this just gets to die. Like we don't get to talk
Right,
about this.
right.
We don't. And I feel if I didn't have the outlet
Right.
to go do stand up or to maybe put this out in a video or whatever this comes to express it, I don't know how humans go without expressing ideas, wacky or unwacky.
Mhm. Well, and all the more scary that we're getting to this like thought police place where you can't
Mhm.
like play around with ideas.
There's good
or
thoughts and bad thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was so funny. I was in England recently with some people who I just
you were?
met who I've been doing business with. Have I mentioned that I've been to England like 4 times now?
No.
Fuck you so much, Taha.
I
Fuck
fuck-
you.
I fucked with their security. Insecurity.
No, but I was with these people that I do this other podcast with, and I never met them. And we
Hey,
became
what's the name of your podcast? Let's promote it.
Oh,
We
yeah.
do that in professional
Sleepwave.
podcast. Sleepwave.
Sleepwave.
Ah,
You know how many downloads we had last week?
how many?
101,000.
Oh my God! Just
In a
your
week.
episode?
No.
No.
Both episodes. I mean, like
So
all.
that's the total or per episode? 100 and something.
total.
Total. Wow.
There were 2 episodes drop in a week, and then there's probably 1 bonus episode drops within the app. And all
Putting out
told,
so much content. 3 episodes per week, basically every week.
between me and this other host.
Okay, okay.
But soon we're going to separate them, and I'll have to do that myself. 3
Anyways,
a week.
I'm glad I had you on my podcast before you became a major internet sleep hypnosis sensation.
Thank you very much.
101,000
in a week. 400,000 in August.
Wow.
I know, amazing.
This is
So
going to get exactly 3 views. I'm glad I'm
you,
contributing.
me, and Suan.
And Jen Tilton, a friend of mine. Why did I say her full name? We'll bleep this out. Jen will also watch this. 4 views. And a friend of mine from community college.
Great.
That's it.
Community college, I love
now
it.
you have
Go
101,000 views
Yes.
and 4.
Right.
Okay.
Which is all very good.
Anyways.
But the point is, I was meeting with these people who produce this podcast, and they're all like 30 and under and very nice, and I really enjoyed being with them, and we talked about lots of stuff and you know, deep stuff, interesting stuff that like pushed against some of the thought police, and but I couldn't help thinking, you know, 5 years from now, if this podcast ends up being a big deal, and if I end up being somebody who has any sort of platform in the world, are there conversations that we just had that they could go to a blog 5 years from now and say, Jessica Porter said XYZ?
It's now they're almost everyone like who is in a class above us who graduated, who's been doing podcasts longer than us.
Right.
They keep talking about how you have to put out stuff knowing that this is for life. Like this, whatever you say now is going to come back in 20 years. But I feel also at the same time, the hammer of PC culture and thought police is becoming less severe.
What makes you say that?
There is more push now from the middle to normalize things and be like, so what? So what did he say?
It's true. We are living through some cancellations. And
We are
seeing
living through
that.
some getaway-ations.
Yeah,
We lived through the cancellations a lot, but now we're seeing a lot of people who 3 years ago would have been crucified, and now they're like, yeah, so what? He said this. Who cares?
No, it's true. We're starting to develop some resilience around it.
It's the pendulum switches. And again, the more, and I haven't read a lot of American history. I haven't read a lot of American history. Most of my knowledge is almost always second hand. And I was listening to this podcast with a bunch of comedians talking about history, and they were talking about like earlier American history. This is all happening within 200 years. It's like a blink of an eye to us.
Yes.
And it's almost the same things. It's almost the same things.
Yeah, but not what you didn't have was every single person armed with a phone. Like that's different. And every single
but it's also fake, and we're starting to realize that it's fake because
I know, but I'm just
closed
saying
doors,
that the scale of it is different.
on the surface. I think this is what's starting to appear. We're starting to realize that all of these things are only 10% or 15% of the population on Twitter and social media who are making these things bigger. But in real life, behind doors, we don't talk like we talk on Twitter. Everyone has an opinion and they want to express
but
it.
the person that you're talking to behind closed doors, i.e. you in this case, or me in this case, there is the thought that we could narc on each other later. I mean, all I'm saying is I spent, how old am I? Doesn't matter. When does social media, we got phones in 2008. That was 13 years ago. 15, where are we?
2022?
Yeah, 14 years ago. So at 40, every single year of my life before 40, I felt relatively safe in the world. And then as soon as social media came along, not as soon as it came along, it took a while to develop what we're in. But there is a feeling in my nervous system that all I can imagine is, I remember learning when I was a child, and I grew up during the Cold War, that in Russia, one's mother, with whom, you know, you spent your evenings and she cooked dinner and she picked you up from school or whatever they do in Russia, meaning whatever the system allows, could be a KGB agent. So you didn't tell your mother your innermost thoughts, especially if they were anti-Soviet. And that I found was chilling to hear that as a child. And I mean, or a teenager maybe.
Especially in your lovely liberal communities over here on this side
Yes,
of the globe.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, lately, in the last 5 years, I've thought to myself, well, now everyone could be KGB. I mean, literally, everyone's
Metaphorical KGB.
phone could be, yes,
Metaphorical
could be
KGB.
weaponized.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is different. But I agree with you that we're learning to live with it.
It's scary, but it's gonna become normal. It's like all of these things when they came out, we thought that's gonna be the end of the world. I think they did the same
But
thing with
what
TV.
it does is it stops. So you said, I don't know how people like these how you could live without letting these ideas out. You were talking about fundamental expression. And what I'm saying is the ability to express oneself safely is a huge part of the development of the human emotionally and spiritually. And when we no longer make a place for that in the world, it's
a new type of
dangerous thing.
bankruptcy, I feel, or it's a new challenge that we've the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
Okay. For a long time, that was people were failing to and people are still around the world right now failing to meet the food stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are failing to meet the sex stuff.
Right.
Go to the Middle East. And now it's in the West. You guys are failing to meet the intellectual stuff, even though you should have all of the freedom to express yourself. But this is how the development is halted. And I would say throughout history, it's been always, there always has been these challenges. But because we're reading about them in the past, we don't know that a lot of the good things that we are repeating today, or the things that did make an impact in the past, were also somehow said during some restrictions that are relevant to that time, as opposed to now.
True, but the whole point
And without restriction,
of like liberal democracy and America specifically is that the individual has the right to express themselves. I mean, that is a huge tenet of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and that's what's interesting, is to have lived here all of my adult life feeling that freedom and now somehow feeling like it's threatened.
yeah.
Now, that said, I still have the right to say anything I want. It's just that the pushback is terrifying.
And I would say the pushback was also freedom of speech.
It is.
But what happened is that companies started making actions, and this is, again, controversial views about COVID.
You mean conspiracy?
No, not at all. Controversial views. Like, do you mean the truth? Do you mean the truth?
You mean bullshit?
YouTube is gonna pull this off of its monetization schemes. But really, I feel like COVID in the beginning got blown out of proportion because the companies immediately were like, we need to take a side on this, because if we don't take a side on this, we will be crucified later. So everyone was like, okay, quickly, this is dangerous, then we're shutting down, we're doing everything we can according to the CDC, so that you don't come after us and say, oh, you, during the COVID, you didn't adhere to what the mainstream was saying. It's almost like coming and saying, like, oh yeah, you voted for the Iraq war, right?
I disagree.
Tell me.
Well, first of all, I don't think any corporate response is that coordinated. I don't think they're that quick.
But you saw the emails as soon as COVID happened. Everyone, I was getting emails from companies that I never go to the company. It's all an app. Why are you sending me about your COVID response?
I know, but that's.
But that was.
But to think that there was some like coordinated.
No, I'm not saying coordinated. No, not at all. Just by pressure of the quickly take a side on this. But
the reason there was pressure is because there was an actual problem.
We've had SARS and we've had like all of these stuff in the past that were of similar death rate, and it was not blown out of proportion because of the time.
No, but
this
SARS
was the
never
first time.
spread globally.
We've had the
reason we had the lockdown was not because COVID is the scariest disease of all time. It was because if you had enough people having it, it would absolutely cripple a medical system, and you would have unnecessary deaths.
Sure.
And that's all they were trying to do.
I'm not saying all of this is
Lockdown was only about flattening a curve to take pressure off the medical system. I mean, we had people, there were like 250,000 cases a day at a certain point. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is the world locking down is a very dramatic thing. And it was
Unnecessary.
no.
It wasn't, because there's a lot of countries that didn't lock down. There's a lot of people that went without the lockdown and they survived.
Who?
Egypt, for example, like we didn't have we did have a curfew for a while in the beginning when everyone was scared, but when things opened up, we didn't do like another. No one cares over there about COVID anymore. Like it's not even something that we talk about.
Okay.
Like it became a flu.
And what we've discovered is many African countries didn't get hit by COVID quite like they thought, and you could.
And we didn't quarantine.
But you must have at first.
Some, but not really. Like that wasn't as strict as here. Like it's laughable.
But it would be interesting to look at certain factors. For instance, the times that I've gone to African countries, and I've been to several, you don't have anything like the obesity rates that you have in the United States. It's in general a much hotter place, and the virus does not do well in the heat. Like there are factors that would make the response in, say, Italy or northern U.S. different than it would be in Africa.
Here's what I'm saying. I didn't need to hear from a meditation app about their COVID response.
I know, but all I'm saying is I'm not saying that what you are saying is not true.
And I'm also not saying
that I think you're projecting onto them that there was that the COVID response was extreme because of the corporations wanting to look good retroactively. I disagree with completely.
Wanting
know
to
that they were
save face.
motivated
We
by
don't know
looking
what's
good.
happening right now.
Sure.
But we want to look good.
Sure.
Is a big incentive more than that we're afraid. We're actually worried about the outcome of this. It's more of
but
like
I'm saying that wasn't premeditated.
no, not at
thing.
all. No, not at all. And I'm not saying this as part of this specific incident. This has been building for years. Where when I was in 2012 here at school and I was studying business, they were talking about how it's important for people now to know that their company that they like to buy their milk from also recycles, or that their company. So the character.
Bo Burnham talks all about this.
Yeah, the characters of the business became something that would make you either buy from us or not, based on they support they don't support gay marriage, so we're not gonna go to this place.
Right.
So that's what happened with Disney. When they were like trying to pull the plug, they were like, I don't really I can't remember where they fallen on it. Was it the say gay, don't say gay bill or something like this?
I can't remember either.
And
I don't care. I think anyone over 12 who's into Disney is weird.
I agree.
Sorry.
I agree. Most
Anyone
of
who's
them are like
married and goes to a Disney
Valley
place for their
girls.
honeymoon. That's weird. But hey, do your thing. Be yourself.
what was I saying?
So you're saying corporations, but hey,
It became the
Supreme
character,
Court
yeah.
decided the corporations are people, so maybe we should relate to them.
So
this
this is what I'm saying. This is like there was
It
a
makes
lot of these
intuitive
social
sense
things.
that, like, the more you were talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the more someone is fed and bathed and clothed and housed in their life, and they
Become more like-
they live with the most basic needs covered for their entire lives, the more like spoiled and decadent and entitled we become. And then we think, well, it's not just about where I buy my soap. I need to buy my soap from, like, the grooviest,
Yeah.
both ethically
free
sourced.
range chicken.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with that per se if the company is actually delivering on those ethics. I think we've just gotten to a place where we're so used to having our needs met that now we're going into this like other level of, is it socially responsible?
Yeah, and demanding that it
Yeah.
has to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's my entire
But
point
that's
of that.
just
That
like
played a factor.
privilege. I mean, you have to have a certain basic set of needs covered to even think about those things.
But I don't think I should go to the company for, like, I get it. They're making a product, and we shouldn't make companies that are making bad decisions that are hurting others or hurting the environment or hurting the planet. We shouldn't reward them by buying their stuff and making them more successful. I get it. But
So you just undid your whole
no,
argument.
no, no. I get that. I get that part. I get it. But there is a line.
Yeah,
Like
but
there's a line of
huge
expectation. They're not
American
God.
corporation. I get that they're seducing us now on that front. You know what I mean? And they're coming with their political correctness to seduce a politically correct generation, and that's in its own way kind of cynical and stupid and whatever.
And it's
But-
business.
But when
Unfortunately.
you have a business at scale like McDonald's, it does matter where they're. You know what I mean? If you care about that shit, they're doing such a huge, huge, huge business that even a 1% decision in McDonald's actually has an economic impact somewhere. So why not pay attention if you want to? I'm not saying that we should all pay all attention to all of that stuff all the time. I think we're getting to a point where we all think, oh, these are my interests. You should have them too. And if you don't, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, that's the wrong part. It should be if you don't have them, then bye, or at least
Well, and if you don't
stay
have
in your
them,
own lane.
do you
Don't
feel
bother
like
me.
listening, having a conversation with me about them? Maybe you do. And if you don't, that's okay too. Like, in other words, people don't recognize that we're all cells in a big human body and we all have different strengths. And you can't have all the strengths.
Yeah.
You can't be like an out and out, hold a placard activist and a mother of 5 kids trying to make decisions about what gets put in their mouth, and a lawyer who's a human rights defender, and
And you can't
someone who
do
interrupts Sam,
yeah.
and Yeah.
And you can't do all of these things and be perfect at them. That's really the thing. As I feel like, yeah,
no, people have lost all sense of perspective and sense of humor.
there's I'm the god from my own perch, and I'm judging you on your behaviors, and I've never done anything wrong.
Well, and we're doing it right now too.
You are.
Yeah,
Fuck these people.
it feels great.
They're all wrong.
Yeah,
We're the right
feels
ones.
so good.
Wait, so tell me. Let's ask about this. Do you have any rituals in your life? Like something that you do that is, yeah, I have to do it a certain way. That goes from the way you wake up every day, the way you meditate, the way you masturbate,
I think Sam.
the way you roll your joints.
I think I don't do that anymore. I think the area of my life that is most ritualized is cooking,
Okay.
because the only type of cuisine I ever learned to cook was macrobiotic.
Macrobiotic.
Cuisine.
Now, what is that?
I'm burping.
You've explained to me 1,000 times. I know there's a lot of beans in it.
There's not a lot of beans. but
Some beans.
Some beans. It's a way of eating that's based on Taoist principles, and you're looking at food through the lens of yin and yang and balance. It's about staying balanced with nature through the seasons and depending on where you live. For instance, we're in Southern California. It's going to be 100 degrees today. You eat in a certain way.
So what would you eat on 100 day? Is it like
Lighter, cooler. I mean, follow your intuition. It's not,
watermelons?
yeah, it's not rocket science. I mean, our grandmothers ate this
It
way
just
because it was
sounds
the only way to
complicated.
eat that way.
Okay.
But we now eat in a way where you could have like a steak and, let's think of it the other way around. You could be in New York in the middle of winter eating like a banana smoothie with spirulina in it and ice cold. You could have ice cream in the middle of winter in New York. That doesn't make sense to the body. I'm not saying you couldn't get away with it every once in a while, but your body's needs in the middle of winter demand, more heat, more fluid. According to Chinese medicine, like the organs that are getting sort of stimulated or tonified in the winter are the kidneys, bladder, and sex organs. You would eat more seaweed, things that nourish the water element of the body. Now, California, Southern California in particular, is sort of an interesting example because we don't have that much seasonal change. So it's been interesting living here because where I learned it was like a very strong 4-season climate, and you eat quite differently in every season. You do it intuitively, whether you know it or not, but once you learn how to do it in a
Yeah.
way that really supports your health, it's a very powerful way of eating, but it's also a powerful way of thinking and living because it's very close to nature. And
So we'd be all living in Southern California. We'd be all eating the same food.
no, but let's dial back 500 years. You could only get certain foods at certain
I
times
see
of
what
year.
you mean. Yeah, yeah.
So it's local.
And in this
it's
area
seasonal.
too. Yeah.
It is climatic.
Makes a lot of sense.
Of course it does.
We're not
It's
supposed
what we
to
all
have,
did.
We're not supposed to have like certain fruits for the year long.
Right. They only come for like a month.
Yeah.
And that's when you have them and you enjoy them, and they're really ripe and really delicious during those times. The rest of the year they don't even taste good.
So this is the macrobiotic. According to my nerdy language education, there is microbiotics.
Well, there
Or
isn't a
what's the difference
microbiotic
between macro
diet.
and micro?
I mean, it's not a scientific term. It's a term that was used by this guy George Osawa, who was this Japanese dude in like the 1920s. There was a big tuberculosis epidemic in Japan at the time, and his mother died, and his sister died, and his brother died. And he, at 18 years old, contracted tuberculosis. And he went to this Japanese, obviously, doctor in Tokyo, who was recommending for people just brown rice, which nobody ate in Japan at this point. Like, Japan had
Everything
become
was
like,
white rice.
Yes,
Yeah.
had become like sophisticated, and sugar and white rice, and that's how the aristocrats and the rest of us ended up eating. He was taking people back to brown rice, vegetables, just a minor amount of good quality salt, a minor amount of oil, and people were healing.
And where do you stand on beefs with this? No beef? No meats?
Animal food.
No animal food?
I eat a little fish every once in a while, but yeah, the macrobiotic diet in general. Well, first let me just say it's not like a wagging finger. If I lived in Alaska, if I were a native Alaskan, I would probably have eaten seal and seal blubber for different points in my life, because that climate actually requires some animal food. So it's not doctrinaire. It's about your needs, but principally based on where you live and what time of life you're in. A woman my age has different needs than a kid. I have different needs than a man.
Yeah. So you would, because I've heard that you would go to people and you would do this for them.
Mm-hmm.
You would just go and like talk to them and be like, this is, or you would just know how old are you, this is where you live, I know the temperature and everything, and you based on that would design a diet for them?
Well, no, because within what I'm saying, the foods are still relatively the same within the macrobiotic diet, meaning, the principal food is whole grains and then vegetables.
Mostly brown rice.
No,
or whole grains.
Brown rice is like a very popular whole grain, but you actually want variety in that area too. There would be whole grains like brown rice, barley, quinoa, millet, whole corn, rye, kamut, spelt, amaranth.
I couldn't even name the amount of grains you named.
Oats.
I was like wheat, oats, and
Yeah.
the first one that I said.
And then some like whole grain products every once in a while, like whole grain bread or whole grain noodles. Vegetables. Now, vegetables is like, to most people eating the standard American diet, it's like, oh, vegetables, tomatoes, potatoes, green beans. But vegetables is a mad array. And you have vegetables that grow up and are green, like collards and kale and napa cabbage and bok choy. You have vegetables that are round and grow on the ground, like onions and squash and cabbage. And then you have vegetables that are root. See, this is where my ritual
I don't know how to name all of these vegetables.
This is where my ritual
This is what I'm impressed by right now.
Then you
like
have
lettuce,
root
kale,
vegetables
that's it.
that grow down. So vegetables have three different energies. There's down, there's relatively balanced vine and ground vegetables, and there's up. And those energies in the macrobiotic diet, you actually pay attention to how much of the upward energy you're getting. And at different times of year, you need more root vegetables or more ground vegetables or more leafy greens.
Okay, and where do you go to find a manual for this? Like, how would I know what
There
to
are
eat?
entire books. I've written a couple books on it.
I know you're like a successful author. Okay, so let's do this. Do you remember what you ate yesterday?
Yeah.
I know you're jet lagged
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
England.
I had whole corn.
Okay, can you walk me through the decisions of the breakfast, for example? Like, what did you have for breakfast?
Well, I'm not a big breakfast person, so I just had like a cup of green tea at first. And
Okay.
then like an hour later, what I had was food I'd cooked the day before, but it was whole corn. There's a type of corn called dent corn or flint corn that like,
There are types of corn?
that when you grind it, you get masa, which makes tortillas and tamales. But this is the whole form, which is sometimes called hominy. Like, for instance, you could buy a can of hominy. And then there's ground up hominy, which is called hominy grits. So anyway, corn.
This is where how many comes from?
Corn is indigenous to North America,
Yes.
or to Central America and South America. It is like the grain that makes most sense in this climate, especially a very, very sunny climate, because of all the grains, corn gets the most sunshine. It has the highest starch content. So I had whole corn. I had kidney beans that I got from a can.
That's after an hour from the green tea.
Yeah. And then this is all together. And then I had some carrots that I cooked the day before and some
It's too early for carrots in the
collard
morning.
greens.
I don't know why.
And I heated it all up and I ate it like a stew. And that kept me going for, 4 hours or so. And then I didn't really have another proper meal. I went out with some friends later. I mean, I had like things here and there, but it were not
Are you
like
snacking
real
on
food.
anything? Like,
Yeah.
are you allowed to like eat chips?
I mean, there's no allowed.
I know. Yes. Okay. It's
The
very
question is, like,
friendly.
How do you
it's
end
very
up feeling afterwards, and like, was it a good decision? But, like for instance, potato chips. Potatoes are what we call deadly nightshades. I mean, that's actually
Oh yeah, you talked about the nightshades
the
before.
term in biology, and I mean it's the family.
They
And
grow in the dark.
yes, and they have a very high content of something called is it solanine? solanine.
That's the stuff that is somewhat
it's
poisonous
mildly
to yeah.
poisonous. And it's highly acidic. So it can build up acid in the body, and if you have any predisposition to arthritis, tomatoes, potatoes, eggplants, and green peppers can aggravate that.
I love all of these things aside from the eggplants.
I know, it's very Middle Eastern. Tomatoes,
Yeah.
potatoes, eggplant.
And bell peppers.
peppers.
Yeah, bell peppers especially.
So I wouldn't eat chips, but does that mean of course I would every once in a while. But lately I've had like some joint issues, so I would stay away from chips. So I had like some cashew yogurt. That's not macrobiotic really. What else? Yeah, I had some like shitty stuff during the day. And then I went out with some friends and I ate at Tender Greens like some rice, some vegetables, and some salmon.
Okay.
That was yesterday's food.
That's not bad. And like I now understand
A little
where it's
better.
coming from, yeah,
Right.
and the science of it. But it's very hard to pin. Like you don't have a pitch elevator for this. Like you can't sell people
it
on
takes,
this
like,
without
2
like here's a
minutes.
book.
No, here's the thing. It's so true. I always say like being vegan, and macrobiotics is not strictly vegan at all, but we do happen to eat very, very little animal food. Like I don't eat any dairy. I haven't for years.
Yogurt?
It doesn't mean it was cashew yogurt. I don't have regular yogurt.
Wait, made from cashews?
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew. Like they failed to get the texture
Ew.
of the milk
Ew.
right. Why would they
Ew.
ever go into
Ew.
yogurt land? Why?
No, I know it's not actually that good. It's that in England.
It's not
Did
actually
I
that
mention
good.
that I was in England?
Oh my God! It's the English.
In England, we had a lot of coconut yogurt. Again, not macrobiotic. but
coconut yogurt.
there was a coconut yogurt
Why
that they sold at
humans,
the
why?
health food store that was really good. So I'm a little on like a fake yogurt bender. But my point is, I don't eat dairy, and I eat, comparatively speaking,
Yeah,
very
you-
little animal food, and usually in the form of fish. So, what was your question? Oh, you don't.
Is
Yeah.
there
so
is there a shortcut
to be a
this?
vegan,
Yes.
you do one thing. In fact, you don't do one thing.
You don't eat meat.
Yeah, you don't eat animal products. And some vegans don't use any animal products of any kind. That is a very simple organizing principle for a diet. Now, in macrobiotics, it's like you do about 37 new things.
Yeah.
And that is complicated. It takes years to really get.
Or you should have an Instagram page and
Comfortable
you
with that.
post every day. Be like, if you live in these coordinates, you should be eating this. This is native to your land. Just tips every day.
But
You need a Facebook
I'm
group.
done with teaching macrobiotics.
Are you
I'm sick
making
of it.
money from like, right?
No.
No. Have you traveled somewhere
Oh
lately?
no! Wait, I was just in England. and I was cooking for somebody.
Yeah.
And I did make money doing that. Yes.
See, that's my point.
But I don't want to be a macrobiotic cook. in
No, I know
general.
it's not like I'm not gonna make. I mean, not only that you've wrote books
Like,
about it.
Here's the thing: George Asawa, the guy who healed himself at 18, and he went
died
on.
of arthritis.
He went on to write like hundreds of articles and 60 books, and he was quite an extraordinary dude. He talked about like what I love about macrobiotics is that it's not about eating perfectly because there's no such thing. It's not even about being healthy, although that is a phase you go through. Meaning,
Just being a pain in the ass. Like, what is it about then?
you you do recover your health,
Yeah.
and it is a
like
diet that was very popular for people who have cancer.
But
Hold on, I'm not finished. Enough. Patatas. After you've recovered your health, what you do with the macrobiotic diet and the macrobiotic way of thinking, which is very liberated, the thinking, because it's all about balance, and everything in nature is balancing. Just as you said, we're coming to a point with the internet and cancellation where, the pendulum is swinging.
Yeah.
Balance is occurring on every level all the time, and macrobiotics is a way of eating to align with that. You live your dream. That's what you do with the food. The food is there to propel whatever your acorn is supposed to become an oak. You know what I mean? Like, we are here on missions. Now, what I mean by that is you could say you have talents. You have natural talents and natural gifts that are meant to be like given to the whole, that are meant to be expressed. And that's the point. It's not about being perfectly healthy. It's not about, being good. And it's not about being vegan even. It's about living your dream. And that's happening for me.
It should be microbiotic is such a terrible name for
It
this
is
diet.
a horrible name.
I
But it
think
means
it
long
should be
or
called something
big
else.
life. Macrobios. Big life.
Macro is big, yeah. Bio, that's
But
the
it's a
part I know.
horrible name. I couldn't
Yeah,
agree
no,
more.
it should be more spiritual. Like it should.
It
It's
should
like
be sex.
should be Gaia diet.
Yeah,
It should be
yeah.
something like
It
this
should be-
Mother Nature
yeah.
diet, because it's very psychedelic. Like I feel like we should talk about this while we're listening to some
Totally.
Terence McKenna or like
It's
some
very psychedelic.
Alan Watts. Yeah, because
when I did ayahuasca, my big takeaway was
when did you do ayahuasca? How long ago?
like 14 and then again in 2017. But
Oh,
my
that was
big
5 years ago. That
takeaway
wasn't that bad.
was macrobiotics is the slow ayahuasca.
It sounds like from what you were saying. As soon as that's why I made this connection, because it sounded more spiritual and more.
Oh yeah. It's all about like a unifying principle. I
Jack
mean, there's a God
Cornfield.
in it, but not any kind of
Yeah, yeah,
Christian.
yeah.
It's like almost
Mm.
like Shinto, Japanese sense of just the unifying principle. And nature does have a unifying principle, and you're eating to align with that. But it's not ritualistic. What's funny is that we got to this conversation because you said, "Do you have any rituals?"
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to say is, when I step into a kitchen, I'm thinking with a whole framework in my head that sometimes I find oppressive, and I wish I weren't governed by it. But at the same time, the flip side is that it's very powerful. Like, I can help somebody heal. I just don't adhere to it all the time, so I get mad at myself and I get into.
But
little
it's hard.
arguments.
It's hard to adhere to it all the time. Like it
Especially
requires-
when you live alone.
and especially if you're just cooking for one, and at the same time, it like I don't know how much research and
Right.
preparation it requires.
But also, there's a whole psychological level that I'm learning about myself, which is, how are we doing?
Which is
And I know you'll get this. I'm trying to think about how I attack this whole concept. When I eat the macrobiotic diet consistently, I begin to feel so energized and so well and like bubbling over with energy. Now, not every second of the day.
Yeah.
In fact, it follows natural rhythms. But it is, in fact, this light, clear, beautiful, creative energy, and it gets really strong. That is so counter to the template of the household that I grew up in that I think one of the reasons that I don't cook for myself macrobiotically regularly and consistently is that it threatens my original programming to get stronger and stronger and stronger.
let's say not threaten, but I would say it's like pulling from, because by default you'll be doing what you grew up with, and it's just in a way it's you have to resist to do the thing that is gonna make you stronger and better.
Yes.
And that's the
Yes.
that's the hard
Yes.
shackles of
Yes.
childhood that you have with
But
you.
when I do it, or I live in a community that does it for me, and I eat that way,
Yeah.
I start to feel like I need to compulsively throw that energy away. I need to compulsively
I know.
tip the pot over and spill it out onto the floor instead of letting it grow and get even stronger and get even, you know what I mean, and
Yeah,
create something bigger than my ego knows how to handle.
I have the same thing with fried food and alcohol in general.
What do you mean by that?
Because as soon as I stop eating fried food,
Yes.
3 days into it, I literally feel more energetic. I feel
Right,
better. All of
right,
these things.
Right.
But
And you
then
can't stand it.
It's almost in a way you have so much energy.
Yeah,
You're like,
you
we need to
can't
celebrate
stand it.
by drinking and having fried food.
Yes.
Like it's almost this. Like it's up now. Let's
Yes,
bring it down,
yes.
and then
Well, it's what my therapist would call an upper limits issue. Like we have a bandwidth that we are used to, just like our bodies have. Like these pants, I haven't worn these pants in like 5 years, and I was really amazed and sort of, as the English would say, I was in England for the. They'd say chuffed. I was really
She's chuffed.
chuffed
Yeah.
that
You say it's so American though.
I was chuffed. I was
Chuffed,
chuffed,
chuffed.
Sam.
It doesn't-
Chuffed,
it's longer, I
chuffed,
feel.
Chuffed.
Chuffed.
Yeah,
Anyways.
chuffed. It's
Yeah.
lighter.
Lighter,
Chuffed. I was chuffed.
Okay.
That these pants totally fit. I was stunned. I'm 55. I'm supposed to be gaining
Oh,
weight.
I'm gonna bleep
supposed
it.
to
I'm
be
gonna bleep
gaining
it.
a pound every day at this point.
Wait, who
I mean,
says according to what science that you're
Oh my
supposed
God!
to be
Have
gaining?
you heard of menopause? Like, I'm sorry, but older women, like, talk to anyone my age, and the first
I've seen
complaint
older
they
ladies.
have
Yes, they're gaining weight. Okay.
is that they're gaining weight,
Yeah.
specifically around their middle.
You have
which
a
I have a
very
whole bit
famous
about
get,
that.
yeah, about the.
But I was amazed I could put
gut.
on these pants. So the point is, we have like set points psychologically, and I'm constantly talking to I'm so grateful that my biggest problem in therapy is that I'm dealing with upper limits and issues, like trying to break my own glass ceiling of contentment and achievement and happiness. I mean, how great a problem is that? But we do have them. So your fried food and beer is like you're hitting an upper limit, and you have to, vodka, is that you have to crash down. And I do that too. With macrobiotics, I'm like, oh no, give me the cashew yogurt. I can't be too good.
Yeah. I think of it in. It's like you get to the point where there is the void. This is the void that you've been like always avoiding, and it's like in a way it's like, oh okay, then let's avoid. And we do that.
What do you mean by the void? What is the void?
There is always like something when you're like, oh, everything is good now, and then the thing, whatever your theme in your brain is, the thing that is not right, or the thing that is not completes this perfect picture of how you feel right now. Like a lot of times I feel, a lot of times when I fall back into eating fried food and like drinking, it's like, oh, I feel so good right now. I want to have fun. So, and I want to go out. And hey, let's go out and do some fun, something fun. It's like, I can't afford it. Or, oh, I want to enjoy this with my significant other who's not here.
Right.
So it becomes, oh, then what am I going to do with my time? Oh, I'll just go home and play Batman. Like, I guess this.
What is playing Batman?
A video game.
That is
just
the
gonna sit
stupidest thing you've ever said.
And play. Oh my god! You should have seen the clip I posted this
you know,
week of me.
up there with like high heels, making me lose respect for
Red-
men is
red
video games, especially specifically Batman.
No, but video games for me is alcohol. That was
I
my
get
first
it.
alcohol.
I get
like
it.
I
I watch stupid TV. I get it.
When you were talking about your TV, when we were talking on the phone a couple of days ago, and you were telling me that you learned that you go to TV and watch TV for 8 hours. I play Warcraft.
Yeah. No, I mean, I try not to do 8 hours anymore, but I mean, as a kid, I used to do 8 hours.
As a kid,
Yeah.
my dad would like my first loophole of lying that I discovered was when my dad would call me from the other room and he'd be like, "What are you doing?" And I would say, "I'm just sitting."
And he bought that?
And he was like, okay, great, back to
Oh
his
my
newspaper.
God.
And
Well, he was a man. He understood.
yeah, he didn't care.
Yeah.
But he didn't know that when I say I'm sitting, I'm like, I would say like in my head back then when I was a child, I was like, I'm not actually lying. I'm just sitting in front of the TV
Sure.
playing a game.
Sure.
But when he said, "What are you doing?" I said the truth.
Yeah.
And he was like,
yeah.
"Okay,
Yeah.
go on, keep sitting."
My dad used to say I was a good sitter. He goes, JJ, she's a sitter. It's true.
It's so-
I love
it's-
sitting. I hate standing up. I think lying down is the best.
It's so non-threatening, though. You're like, oh, she's good at sitting.
I
Like,
know,
what does that
I know.
mean? She's so
No, he
agreeable.
appreciates a little more lately than that, but I am a sitter. He nailed it. So, okay, I just want to say that I don't see the same. It's interesting for me to hear your model of, this is good, but this thing is missing, or there's the void. I don't know that I actually perceive that way anymore for a number of reasons, but one of them is, and I was saying this to someone yesterday, is how I eat. Like, in other words, I've been eating whole grains since I was 23, so that's 32 years. And I don't eat whole grains every single day, but let's just say they've been a major part of my diet for that long. And whole grains, have complex carbohydrate, which levels out your blood sugar. B, contain B vitamins that relax your nervous system. But more than both those things, a whole grain is a seed that has regenerative capacity. And what I mean by that is you can plant that seed and a whole new plant will grow. It's like you're eating a baby. And that could grow into an adult.
If you eat whole grains, you're a baby eater.
Yes,
That's exactly what we're saying here.
Like the Democrats.
Yes.
So, and a whole grain versus like flour, which is ground up whole grains. Whole grain is still unified. It's still united. That's why it has regenerative capacity. You can't plant.
You killed it. When you
Correct.
grind it, you killed it.
Right. You can't plant a piece of bread and have a bread tree grow. Okay? So that unifying quality, that intactness of the whole grain, and you're eating thousands of them a day for years, has built an intactness in me that I didn't have as a child, or, you know what I mean? Like, I was more screwed up and more in pain, and I didn't, and now that I have it, I don't really think about it. But when we compare our models and you talk about like the void, I realize that I don't perceive, I'm not saying I don't have problems, I just don't see them that way.
You don't see it from
I don't
a void
see them
point
that
of
way.
view. You see
Yeah,
it from,
exactly.
No, I ate a lot of like all of the fried food I ate was all of my whole grains were ground and breaded to bread the meat. So it's
well,
broken
you and
like
everyone
me.
else.
Yeah, no,
you and
this is
everyone
exactly
else.
how it is.
But it's a trippy way of thinking about it, and I think it's actually true.
It is, and it's like if you talked to me 5 years ago, I would have been like, and that was the end of the podcast.
Right,
She went crazy.
Right.
But I'm more like because I come from a very scientific like, where is your evidence of this? Like, where do we show me your peer-reviewed studies to show me what you're saying?
Which, by the way, like whole grains and vegetables in a plant-based diet, there are mountains of evidence that they are superior ways of eating. And don't say that being a dick. Like, do whatever you want. I don't care. But the evidence is in.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm not putting down your
right.
I'm just like saying that.
Yeah.
It's not like, how can you quantify what you're saying? It's a lot of these
You're
things.
right. You're right.
But at the same time, I'm also realizing that science has been wrong about these things so many times.
Well, like you said, science doesn't even know how to quantify that.
Yeah. It's not measurable.
Because it's intrinsic.
Yeah.
And
it requires a lot of effort
ineffable.
for you to come and analyze your where you came from and which environment you grew up, and now the environment that you're here, and what time and what age and all of these things. For me to personalize such a diet for you and have a generalized guideline is exactly like the COVID stuff. Of like, no, it's different. It hits everyone different.
Right.
It depends on how overweight you are. Your
But what's
immune
interesting,
system.
if I were to take you to like a macrobiotic conference, they don't really have them anymore, just because, whatever. It's a long history.
Marketing issues.
What?
Marketing issues.
Yes.
You couldn't figure out how to.
But
market
also
it
like
better.
major teachers, like we've we've aged out of a certain generation that was like organizing stuff like that, and
But if you
the
don't mind me
internet
saying,
came along.
like, what is it? Ram Dass, Alan Watts, all of these people, their message, because it's almost similar. Like what you're saying
Right.
with food is almost
Right.
similar to why I'm comparing these two.
Right.
They, like Ram Dass died 3 years ago, and
Mhm.
now, what's his name? I forgot. But there's another guy that came after him, and almost like now he took it upon his mantle to carry that message under Ram Dass' name. And he's still putting out a podcast, still
Yeah,
doing
I mean,
it. So.
here's the thing.
And
like
what's the name of your Japanese guy?
Michio Kushi.
He could have been the name
Yeah.
of that movement.
Well, and George Asawa before him.
Asawa.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I have my own personal theories about why macrobiotics hasn't spread more decisively, and one of them is I think people do eat too much brown rice, and I think brown rice keeps people sort of contained and internal and
You
like
mean when they
almost
follow the diet,
meditators.
they end up focusing on brown rice more?
Yeah, because
I
it
see.
comes from a Japanese bent. There's tends to be an emphasis on rice, and I think that in my experience, having eaten too much brown rice myself and witnessed other people doing it, it's not a grain that makes you want to like scream from the mountaintops and tell people and go do a marketing campaign. Second, but what it does make you feel is very peaceful.
Yeah.
And inner peace is not that sexy. It's a hard sell.
Would you say, like now with all of
Paleo
these
diet is
meditation apps, and people are like, especially here.
Well,
becoming
that's
more-
true.
So
That's true.
It could have been played, and that's I think why.
Well, maybe it'll have another. I mean, Madonna
Maybe
was
it's
macrobiotic.
Oh,
for
interesting.
Like 15 years.
Yes, that's how you guys should open it.
Yeah. Well, and so was Gwyneth Paltrow.
Do you want to be as no? Don't mention Gwyneth
I know, but
Paltrow.
when she
Like
was,
Madonna's
it was
is like
before
iffy.
Goop. It was
Oh,
before.
okay.
she
Maybe
went
say
completely
that.
nuts.
Say that. Say that
It
in
was
your
like the
commercial.
beginning of her going nuts.
Do you want to be like Madonna and Gwyneth Paltrow before Goop?
So, but there was something I was going to say. Back to but if I were to take you to a conference with like 600 macrobiotic people in it, you'd be really blown away by how strong the energy is and how like kind of refreshingly unneurotic everyone is. And again, I'm not saying they're perfect by any stretch, but when you eat exclusively whole foods that come out of the earth, it has an impact.
Yeah, 100%. And we forget how we're dependent on getting food that somebody else made and packaged, or even the vegetables that you have in your store are also like this is modified or not organic or this. So who's saying this is like if a town goes, if the grocery store closed, the supply stops in 2 days, we would have no food. Of the supply chains,
Right.
because all of the food comes here and we have no, like I can't even go outside and pick a bunch of fruits that I can eat and feel safe.
Yeah. Whereas I know people in Alaska who've been living on this like compound that they continually build themselves for 3 generations now, and they grow a lot of their own food. I mean, in winter they're depending on food that they put aside, but they also get stuff from California. But let's say from June through October, they're growing all their own food. They build their own houses, and they have so much energy. It's insane. My friend Eliza Eller has 13 children. She
She's
has
how
either
old?
been like, she's 2 years older than me. She has either been like birthing, nursing, or chasing after toddlers her entire adult life, and she has more than enough energy to do it.
And the generations before, like mine, yours,
Yeah,
my
our
grandma's
parents,
generation was like that.
That's true.
My
They were much
grandma,
stronger.
my grandmother had 13 kids as well,
Wow.
and then 11 living. And
Mhm.
she was telling me about like, I had like my older kid who was I think 8 or something, and then my newborn kid died in the same month. And I said that I was like, I can't even imagine losing 2 phones in 1 month. Like you losing 2, and you're just talking like one of 13. That's nothing really.
Oh my God! I can't believe you just compared children to
Uh,
phones.
yeah,
That
it's
is
like
the
something
most-
precious
this
that I
goes
care
back to
about.
the man-woman thing.
I
Women
care about things.
people,
Yes,
and
we
men
care about
things.
phones. Men care about
That's
phones.
So funny.
But yeah, like, and you'd hear about her. She was such a strong person. She
Yeah.
had time to like
Yeah.
kick this kid's ass and kick his brother's ass,
and
like,
bake a cake
and make
yeah.
food. And he lived in an apartment with no elevator, and this was
Yeah.
going up and
So
down
strong.
5 stores.
Well, and what was happening is that they were eating
was no McDonald's.
vegetables that were grown close to them in soil that still
Yeah.
contain minerals. So in utero, they were literally made of stronger stuff than we are. They have stronger constitutions. And then if they continue to eat
They were more
decent
stoic.
food, well, but they were literally stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, we have an obesity rate now that's like 30% truly obese, 60% overweight. That occurred, our obesity rate, 100 years ago was more like 3 to 4%. And now it's 30, bordering on 60. That happened when we introduced, high fructose corn syrup into the food supply in the 1970s, which is processed by the food differently than glucose and by the body. And plus the glyphosate that we spray like insane people on genetically modified crops, on top of the incredibly chemicalized, industrialized fertilizer that started with World War II. And the fertilizer was stuff that was leftover chemicals from the war. So what we've done to our food system, a person's made of food. We're not ideas. We're made of food. So a baby is a little food ball that has DNA running it. And we are now making little food balls that are weak, comparatively speaking. And it makes perfect sense. I'm flying low.
We're out of water. We're out of coffee. We can
Are
keep
we out of
going.
time?
I have not decided.
Is
We've been
the
recording.
listener out of patience?
No,
That's the
I think this is a
question.
very interesting conversation. It's
I know,
about
but
get more
I
interesting.
agree with you that,
But yeah, we should
we've indulged.
because I can keep. I have like 7 different points that I want to bring up just to you or what you're saying.
I know.
But I think
But
we're just gonna call it here so we
You
can
and
get
I,
water.
Sam, we have a whole history of 3-hour conversation.
I know, like we can have just like endless.
Yeah, it goes on.
You're gonna be a repeat guest. Like I want to
Your
always have.
brain pings off my brain, and my brain pings off your brain.
And you have this thing where, because I have my scattered brain of here's an idea and then here's another idea and then here's another idea, you are like grounding, like Mother Earth. You're like, no, we're here. And then you bring me back and I'll be able to come with you on the conversation. And you're not afraid to call me if I like say something outlandish.
Right.
You
mean when you say something else?
when, it's not if.
Yes.
It's like when, and you can actually rely and bet money on when.
Well, and I
would
like
say
talking to you
crazy things.
because you are more articulate than most native English speakers.
Oh.
And you are a
English
really-
speakers suck at English then. If this is
Oh, yeah.
articulate, Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Oh my God.
They do in general. I mean, come on, we're lazy with our own languages. Many English speakers have not actually studied grammar very well. But when it's your second language, you have to study grammar.
Yeah. I would say I didn't even study grammar. I just studied talking for a very long time because I watched a lot of TV and I would sit there and be like, oh, they use this word, but not this word. And then I would go look into that word and be like,
Interesting.
oh, because this
wow,
one
see.
means this one means that.
But here's the point, is that you were naturally curious and interested in speaking.
Yeah. In English specifically. That was my favorite subject. And I've always wanted like, oh, let me learn an English that gets me out of here. Like,
Oh,
let me learn,
wow, yeah,
not
it's your
just
ticket.
bet on this. Yeah.
Well, you did it very
Subconsciously, I
well.
think. And then, as soon as I came here, like I was speaking my when I hear stand up that I've done in 2014, it sounds way thicker in accent than I
Right.
am, and that was even me coming out of the language closet in a way, because in Egypt, if you speak too good English, they would make fun of you. Speak
Interesting.
Arabic. What are you doing?
Wow.
What is it called? Pink? It's
Right.
bink.
Right.
Don't pronounce your P's. What is wrong with you?
Huh.
So I would always, in a way, when I speak English in Egypt, dumb it down and try to make it sound slower, and that I am saying things in a certain way so that you don't make fun of me for the English that I'm speaking. I'm just speaking normal English like this.
That's so funny because when I speak Arabic in most Arab countries, they'll be like,
They put hijab on you.
inshallah.
It's inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
They correct you?
La Iowa.
Wait, they correct you? They would stop and correct you?
Ramallah.
Ramallah, why did you learn this? Why did you learn Ramallah?
Because I was in Israel. And I kept saying signs for Ramallah. Ramallah.
But they would correct you, right?
No, I rarely.
okay.
They're
Because that's the Italian thing. Because when my mom used to go to Italy, she's always like, they can't let you say anything wrong.
No,
They
I
would be
felt
like-
that in Germany.
Oh,
I would say something in German, and they'd be like, "I know you want to speak perfect German," and I was like, "No, I just want a hamburger," which is a German word. Whereas I find in Spanish-speaking countries, they congratulate you no matter what you
yeah,
say.
that's where you are. If you say it, and like we'll always laugh and be
You're
like,
"Qué
"Oh my
bueno,"
god,
and they're like, "Oh,
Oh
you,
my God,
tu
look at you,
español es
cute.
maravilloso." Yeah, yeah.
you tried. Look at this, it's
Yeah.
good."
Yeah.
Okay.
goodbye.
Let's promote your podcast one more time for the 4
Okay,
viewers.
my podcast is called Sleepwave, and if you have trouble going to sleep, please listen to it. I'm also a hypnotherapist,
Mhm.
so I use hypnosis.
You
to
would know
help
this if you
people
slept throughout the
go to
podcast.
sleep.
It's her soothing voice. It makes you go to sleep.
Taking you deeper and deeper.
And this is how we're gonna end the podcast with our ASMR voices.
Thanks.
This
for
is Jess
listening.
Porter. Thank you for watching. We'll be back. Bye.
Boom.